LBR LBO CEO Forum.
Platinum sponsor.
Now experience the convenience of the mCash mobile app on your smartphone. Pay your utility bills, insurance premiums and other payments, as well as being entitled to a host of special offers. You can also locate mCash partner merchant outlets and carry out a range of exclusive services. Mobitel, we care always.
Gold sponsor.
Every big dream needs a gentle push. Every unmapped tomorrow needs a warm embrace. Every ambition needs hope to take flight. At Sampadh Bank, we make it possible. Today, tomorrow, and into the future. Sampadh Bank, we present your future.
Silver sponsor.
BoardPack, the leader in iPad board meeting automation. A product by Iron One Technologies offered in partnership with Dialog Asiata.
Are you a busy board director, needing to review your board papers securely while on the move? Are board papers delivered to you securely? Are you finding it difficult to prepare for each board meeting? View meeting content. Interactive agenda. Read and annotate private notes. Approve paper and circulars. And much more. Join the prestigious clientele of BoardPack.
BoardPack, the leader in iPad board meeting automation. A product by Iron One Technology.
Lucerna SR is a meal replacement and low-calorie nutrition for people with diabetes. Triple Care. Benefit when used along with standard diabetes management plan. Helps to manage blood sugar. Supports heart health. Helps reduce weight and waistline. Contains all essential ingredients. Will be appropriate as compared to micronutrients. From Abbott Nutrition USA, marketed by CIC.
For more information and nutritional advice, contact 0773 470 289 for more details.
Moving straight to the panel, I want to combine my first and second questions together, and let's go in order. I really want to go to each of you to ask you fairly briefly first on what is your big takeaway, both from what Razin said and more generally in this idea of a rising Asia. But I'd like you to move on directly to give us a sense, give the audience a sense of what your experience has been or what your view is about Sri Lankan businesses, Sri Lankan brands, products and services going to Asia, tapping into some of these markets, given the experience that your companies have had. So I'll move first to Ranil to take off from there.
Yes, in our case, we are the apparel sector. So when you look at Sri Lanka, as Razin said, USA is continuing, has grown. It's important that we keep our relationship with them, because the USA, when it grows, it also the technology and the innovation that they force us keeps us competitive. Whereas Europe has been a bit stagnant, and we have seen it, USA is about 45% of the total exports. We also have manufacturing facilities in Asia, in South Asia, in Bangladesh, and also in Vietnam. And we have seen, again, on the manufacturing side, the USA is the big player. And therefore, it's important to keep the innovation part. The technology development is one of the key things to keep it competitive. And for Sri Lanka, I think it will become more competitive, given that there's more stable currency now. Earlier, exporters were always hoping for devaluation. So therefore, it's very important, and USA is a big player in it now.
Rani, if I can just press you before I move to Rohan, you mentioned that you have some manufacturing facilities, I'm assuming, across Asia. What was the group's experience in first thinking about setting up in those countries? What some of the rationale that went into it, and what was the experience when you actually went ahead and made some of these investments?
In the case of Bangladesh, it's well before my time in the group. They're 30 years in Bangladesh. I think they went in because at that time Bangladesh was just starting, and garment export very small. And they felt that there was an opportunity with the large labor available. Of course, now Bangladesh is probably one of the leading exporters of garments in the world, and about 6-7 times Sri Lanka's size in terms of exports. So experience has been good. We've grown there, but labor is the big key, and also they have a lot of duty-free and GSP benefits to Europe and duty-free to the USA.
Rohan, I want to move to you because, I mean, if I could sum it up in one word, you sell tea to a country that gave birth to tea almost. And how has that experience been? And if you can also draw in the idea of what is it about this Asia, rising Asia, maybe particularly China, that excites you, worries you?
Yeah, actually, if you take this, our main product that we are, for some time we have been trying to build a global brand. I would say we have been quite successful in that. We first tried our luck in the newly liberalized Russia just after Perestroika, where there was a demand for all sorts of commodities, especially food items. And some of us took the challenge to go to Russia and start introducing our brands. So that's the birthplace for us in building brands. And of course, we got caught in the ruble crisis at an early age, where from about 5 rubles to a dollar, plunged to about 3,000 rubles to a dollar. And some of the value in rubles was absolutely brought to zero. So I believe most of us have paid the entry fee in Russia for brand building. Having come to China, we of course never thought that we could get Chinese to drink our tea, because as Anushka quite rightly said, China is the birthplace for tea. But then we found the developing Russia, the income levels of the majority of Russians, the Chinese, improving and looking for something better than what they could get in China. Then of course in China, now they are worried about the health aspects of what they produce in China. And one thing I realized, when the expectant mothers don't drink tea in China for the fear of tea having a lot of contaminants, overuse of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. However, they feel Ceylon tea is much cleaner and healthy option. And when we went to Russia, we were not going to sell tea because it was difficult to sell tea in China to a populace who are already growing all different types of varieties of tea. Whatever you want, you can get in China. So we even went away from our brand, Heladev, which was a global brand, to a much higher level, and we created a new platform under Infinity, and we created the tea shops in China. We started with 4, now we have 54 tea shops in China, selling only pure Ceylon tea under Infinity brand, and we are the franchise holder, and we are working with a strong partner. One thing I realize in Asia, that wherever you go, you need a strong partner in that particular country, because the Asian culture is such that you can't just go and bulldoze yourself to sell tea, sell a product and compete with local brands. So you need to identify a strong partner before you move in, and that we found in China. We were fortunate in that, and we are quite happy about the progress we have made in China.
I think, Rohan, it's interesting because in your case, it's not just selling this product or breaking that market in terms of this trade, but I think you've set up these tea boutiques and tea bars with those partners. What was the process in your brand going beyond just selling this tea in tea bags or tea boxes or value added to actually having some kind of a physical presence there to take your brand right to the consumer at a retail level?
Actually, as I said earlier, that if we were just selling tea, we would have been another player in the market. So we felt that going on our cardinal rule, innovation, and our brand also said innovative, we say it's perhaps the most innovative tea brand in the world. We take pride in calling that. So we have invented so many tea and non-tea products. And today we even sell to Chinese the foot massage parlors a tea-based compound that they put it into the water, bucket of water they bring. It contains green tea, it contains Venualgeta, as you quite know, that's a disinfectant, and certain other compounds. And so we felt tea was first discovered in the bathwater of a Chinese emperor. So we have gone back in time to give that feeling of not only taking it in, but using it as a purification product. So that is the platform we selected. Go to something new, something innovative, something that would create inquisitiveness in the consumer, and would go for something unique that they couldn't find in the market. So our products, some of the products which contain about 30 grams of tea, we sell around $350, and we have a great demand in that. So we believe, especially in China and some of these developing countries, there is a demand for something non-traditional, going beyond the traditional mark. So that is where I think for Sri Lanka, that's where the market lies.
I'd like to go to Imal on the same question as the others. Your view on the prospects in Asia and what some of the experiences been with your brand.
I mean, for us at Ceylon Biscuits, Asia is definitely seen as an opportunity, but it has always been an evolution. Our traditional export markets have always been to North America and Western Europe, fundamentally because we focused on supplying only premium segments. For example, in the airline segment too, we only focus on supplying the business class and first class segments because pricing is better and quality is more required. So our yields have hence been very good in those because of our focus. So moving into Asia has been an evolution, as I said. Again, from Western Europe, our next focus was Africa. There's 1 billion people urbanizing in the African continent. So that is a huge opportunity you can't miss and forget. Then of course, our gradual move to Asia.
So it was Africa before Asia?
Yes,
Interesting.
yes. But of course, when you look at Asia in particular, I think there's something that you need to critically understand. When you are operating in North America and Western Europe, what you see is what you get. In Asia, yes, it's a huge opportunity, but you might not really see what you're getting into. It's lots of gray shades in terms of how you need to have a customized approach in terms of how you enter very, very specific markets. You need to understand that. It takes some time, nothing is clear. Nobody will exactly tell you exactly how things are going to happen. You need to feed your way. A critical lesson for Sri Lankan companies getting into Asia is it's a long haul. No one's going to make money first year, first 3 months, first 2 years. It is a long haul, you need to have the patience. I will give you an example. 20 plus years ago, I was sent to Vietnam to launch Panadol. Panadol, Aquafresh toothpaste, etc. As a very junior brand manager, I had $1 million to spend. 20 years later, I'm going back to Vietnam. Today, I'm going as a CEO, not as a brand manager. I don't have $1 million to spend, right? So, that's the difference. So, when you are working for a Sri Lankan company, when you're taking brands overseas, you must understand your capacity. So, for example, 20 years ago, when I went to Vietnam, I said, listen, 3 categories, we want to be market leader in Vietnam in 3 categories in 3 years. Today, 20 years later, when I went to Vietnam, I looked at the whole business and I said, 1 product category, let's become the leader in the premium segment in that particular category only. So, fundamental thing to understand as Sri Lankan companies go overseas, understand your capacity. Based on your capacity, figure out the niche or the segment you can really win and succeed in. And that's very important without spreading your risk too far.
I think that's interesting, and it seems to be a common thread coming even from what Rohan said, trying to find those innovative niches. I want to drill down a little deeper, because it seems that many of you have a lot of, Asia is not your sole focus, and for many of you, the West was your sole focus, and to some extent still is. I want to get some brief remarks from you on what is different, and I think you alluded to that a little bit, Imal, where you said Asia, sometimes what you see is not what you get. Can you maybe we'll go in reverse, if you can give us a bit more of an insight on finding partners, finding partners in the West versus in Asia, navigating the business climate. Are there big differences in that?
I will talk of navigating the business climate. When you supply to the US, for example, we need to be FDA registered. FDA will come and audit us every once in 6 years. Documents are sorted out, business goes on. Let's look at India on the other hand. India, for example, in our category 2 years ago set up clear guidelines in terms of what the weightage in pack sizes should be. Every pack needs to be a multiple of 50 grams. This is thanks to our colleagues at Unilever reducing the weight of soap to maintain the price point of soap. So these are the reaction that India responded across all categories. So across all categories of product, and in particular in biscuits, for example, you need to have a multiple of 50 grams, 100 grams, etc. So we look at that ruling, then we establish all our packaging to align to that, and we start supplying India. Suddenly one of our products, chocolate chip cookies, start doing exceptionally well. Then what happens, we get a new gazette notification that for chocolate chip cookies, the pack size needs to be 475 grams, not 500 grams. Now we have a huge issue. We change our packaging across all 55 markets we supply to fit into the Indian model. We have gone and listed all our products across all the countries. The last country we listed our products were in Thailand. Just to list 8 SKUs across 9 chains, it cost us $40 million, right? So now what do we do with India? Only option is to withdraw this product from India, because the cost of changing this, going back to producing this specific product to India is not possible, right? So these are the things that you need to navigate. I will talk of another company from Sri Lanka that was exporting strawberries to India. Strawberries have a shelf life of 7 days. Strawberries started doing exceptionally well in India, and suddenly a ruling was brought that strawberries need to be tested at the port, and the testing takes 5 days, right? So 7 days shelf life, 1 day to ship, 5 days to test. Where do you sell it, right? So these are things that you need to navigate when you enter markets like this. But having said all of this, opportunities are there. I mean, for example, in Chennai, our products, I mean, because of the various political problems we had, particularly with our friends in the BBS crying here, we had our products taken out from the shelves in supermarkets, brought outside and burnt. But in spite of that, we continue to sell exceptionally well in Tamil Nadu, right? So we've created that demand. So my point is that Asia, you have to be ready to face hiccups like this, but you will succeed in the end, provided you keep a clear focus and chart the course.
Just on the point about India, and I'm sure it'll be the same in China and some of the other big markets in Asia, Ima. You said you talked about the budget that you have to break into them. You know, Sri Lankan brands in the grand scheme of Asian brands are not big, don't have as deep pockets. How are Sri Lankan brands going to do it then? I mean, do you see that as a challenge, or do you still see that these catering to niches is good enough to break in, and you don't need to have those deep pockets like some of the other guys?
I think as a company, you need to decide which markets you want to go and establish brands. We have decided which markets those are going to be. In some markets, like for example in China, we are simply integrating our supply chain with brand owners in China. We have tried taking our own brand. We have faced huge regulatory problems, which suddenly seem to disappear when the same product is tested under a different brand name. So therefore, we have now decided, for example, to go to China through a third brand. I mean, so we provide the technical expertise, we have the manufacturing expertise, our partner has the branding expertise and the reach and investment power in China. So it is a partnership. You need to figure out, I mean, we are not multinationals. Unlike multinationals, we can't say we want to be market leaders in this category across 130 countries. We need to very clearly figure out which countries are we going to invest in brands, which countries are we going to supply B2B, which countries are we going to partner simply from a supply chain perspective.
Okay, interesting. Rohan, if I can come to you on the same question, you know, this maybe with Russia and other markets versus some of the Asian markets, if you can just give us a deeper insight into this, finding the partners, the difficulties or differences that you faced navigating some of these tricky business climate.
You see, that's why I always believe that whenever we go into any of the markets, except the West, because we are very comfortable with the West. Most of our companies go to the West, they speak English, and we are groomed in the Western model, so we are very comfortable in the West. Whenever we go to the Middle East, Russia, China, we become unnerved because we are not comfortable with the language, we are not comfortable with their customs and the way they do things, and the systems are not as straightforward as in the West. So we need to survive. So we have to find, that's why I said we need strong partners. If you go without a strong partner, you will come across many problems. You can have the WTO, all these things, you can have non-tariff barriers. Now for instance, China, for tea, they have found a new non-tariff barrier called the REE, rare earth elements. So they look for rare earth elements in tea, and they are platinum, chromium and various types of elements. So I suppose if they find platinum in tea, that should be more expensive than tea, they should be looking for it. But these are the regulations they bring in as non-tariff barriers. So that is why you need strong partners. If you have a strong partner, he will know how to get over the REE problem and which port it should be exported to. So the same principle that applies in the West cannot be applied in other countries. So that is the lesson we have learned over the last 25 years of going into these markets, trying to build brands, burning our fingers, losing money, and now we have a model that we use before we go into a market, we go and find out who the people we should get engaged with in doing our business. So I think that is key for our expansion into new markets. It doesn't matter when we go to the Western markets like US and most of the developed markets where the systems are there in place, where you can walk on the street without a problem, you can go to a bank and discuss terms, you can go to a trade chamber. It doesn't work the same way in some of the other countries. But having said that, Asia contains 50 countries, 4 billion people, 62% of the global population of 7 billion. We can't simply ignore Asia, and that is where the next jump, it will be a mega jump despite all these problems. Asia will be hungry for food, for drinks, for cleaner foods, and for consumer. And this is the time for us to move into Asia.
Trade agreements and the role of a government or two governments or several groups of governments when it comes to regional trade agreements. How important is that in breaking into Asia? And some of your thoughts on that.
This is always my view when it comes to trade negotiations, is to never let trade negotiations lead your national economic policy, because you will end up with the wrong results. You will also end up with a political backlash at home. Rather, you need a coherent national plan of reform, which has a trade component, an investment component. They come together in a supply chain component. You need to have a down payment of things you do on your own. And on the back of that, perhaps, you can think strategically of how to widen and deepen your trade agreements. So I think the answer to better integration with India and with South India in particular is to do those national reforms and then think of the CEPA as a complement to that, but not a substitute.
Rohan and Nimal, I want to come to you on this question of trade agreements. You've expanded to China with no trade agreement. So what are your thoughts on the role and the importance of opening up these markets through trade agreements, whatever shape or form they may be, or just absolute competency and competitiveness of firms and brands?
I think even with China, Sri Lanka is to sign a trade agreement with Turkey. Some of those countries where we can export tea to. Turkey is one of the other Asian giant which sits in the middle of Asia. On one side is Europe, this side is Asia, and I think they identify themselves more with Asia than with Europe. And a trade agreement with Turkey will benefit immensely. But at the same time, you can have trade agreement, but if the trade agreements are not properly enforced, you can have non-tariff barriers negating a very genuine trade agreement. And also, sometimes Sri Lanka also has to give in, because sometimes we close the door for the others and we expect the doors to be open for us. A very good example is tea. We won't allow tea to come into our country purely because to safeguard our tea industry. But we want all the other countries to open their doors freely to export our tea. Now, I don't see economic rationalization in this one. We are lucky because we are small and most of these countries are not affected by that issue. But when it comes to other commodities, we are going to have this problem. So I think the Indian FTA and some of these FTAs are failing because some take a very protective approach in Sri Lanka for the domestic imports, and then they want the other side to open up. So I think FTA has to be studied carefully. With or without FTA, goods will move, and then you have to find the niches. If the FTA is above, then you have to go beyond that, where you will go into the niche segment. Sri Lanka being an externally driven economy, we need to focus on exports and find the ways around to get our goods across.
Imam, breaking into Asia, how important is it for your company to be really good at what you do, and also the role of trade agreements in?
I totally agree with Rohan. I don't think you should develop your strategy based on trade agreements. Our two biggest capital investments outside Sri Lanka, one is in Bangladesh, other one is in Myanmar. Neither of the countries with which we have either FTAs or even double taxation treaties. I think your overseas expansion strategy must be based on opportunities to either supply to those markets or to supply from those markets. So I think it's a very simple principle. That's what we follow. Our strategies are not dependent on FTAs, etc. because I don't think that's the way you should run a business.
LBR LBO CEO Forum.
Platinum sponsor.
The happiness of coverage.
connectivity. The happiness of adventure. The happiness of being free. The happiness of endless joy. For unlimited happiness, Mobitel, we care, always.
Gold sponsor. Every big dream needs a gentle push. Every unmapped tomorrow needs a warm embrace. Every ambition needs hope to take flight. At Sampat Bank, we make it possible. Today, tomorrow, and into the future. Sampat Bank, we present your future.
Silver sponsor.
BoardPack, the leader in iPad board meeting automation. A product by Iron Technologies offered in partnership with Dialog Asiata.
Are you a busy board director, needing to review your board papers securely while on the move? Are board papers delivered to you securely? Are you finding it difficult to prepare for each board meeting? View meeting content. Interactive agenda. Read and annotate private notes. Approve paper and circulars. And much more. Join the prestigious clientele of BoardPack.
BoardPack, the leader in iPad board meeting automation. A product by Iron Technology.
Lucerna SR is a meal replacement and low-calorie nutrition for people with diabetes. Triple Care. Benefit when used along with standard diabetes management plan. Helps to manage blood sugar. Supports heart health. Helps reduce weight and waistline. Contains all essential ingredients. Will be appropriate as compared to micronutrients. from Abbott Nutrition USA, marketed by CIC.
For more information and nutritional advice, contact 0773 470 289 for more details.